Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think Podcast.
Baby.
Enjoy the show.
What we will do. Oh, just... Did you already do that?
No, do what? No idea what you're talking about. Why does it
Do you
feel
really
like
want me on an open mic?
somebody's watching me? Oh, there it is.
Okay, let's put our hat over our face.
Yeah, that was like how it sounded, like, and then the reality, like something.
Hey, baby. How's it going?
That was so funny. You did that very well. You were describing that very smooth, and then the reality was like, oh.
Yeah. It's one of the funniest scenes ever.
It's so funny.
We can't tell you on YouTube.
No.
Sorry.
So we'll have to allude to something else anyway. All right, shall we?
Yes, we totally shall.
All right, start the clock. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We have an exciting episode for you today. Have you ever had an experience where maybe you did something, like you performed somehow, maybe you were doing a sport or giving a performance like playing music or something like that, and you thought to yourself, man, like that felt amazing, like I'd like to see the video of that, right? And then maybe somebody in the audience or one of your friends or family members recorded it and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see this back, right? And you're just thinking, this is going to be amazing, right? And then you watch it and you're like, wait, is that what I look like?
Right.
Is that how I sound? It's nothing like what you imagined in your head, right? Because
you were killing it in
yeah, I've done this on the basketball court. Some of my buddies will post like just short little like reels or whatever, like, up to their story or whatever, and like I'm in it, right? And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm this happened, that happened. And I watch it back and it's like, yeah, that's not NBA style at all, yeah. Right?
Yeah, in your head you're just like NBA. Swish.
Right. Like, oh, that was smooth or whatever.
It looks more like shot.
Yeah. It's nothing like that at all. Well, today's episode is like that. We have, as therapists, we see people in that come to our office, and Nathan, you and I have had these experiences where maybe you're working with one person of a couple, I'm working with the other person of the couple, and they're having relationship issues, and so we're doing our best to help them individually, and then when they come together, something is happening, like, why isn't this working? We both know that they're getting good individual help, so why is it not translating on the court, so to speak, of the relationship, right? And so we've had some times where we'll come to bring us all four together, where it's like, okay, she's got her coach, he's got his coach, and let's see what's happening. And when they talk, it is mind-blowingly different.
It's so different.
It is so different. Like, who are you? You are not the person that I'm used to working with. You turn into a completely different person when you're around your partner.
I think of like, what happens is it's like all of a sudden for the first time when you see him, you hear the background that you'd never heard before, which was, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble. And you're like, oh, I didn't know this is, you're always going to fight.
Right. Because what you hear is, yeah, we like had a conversation and, he was...
It escalated.
He was yelling at me about this, and I like tried to keep my cool, and I was like, can we talk about this? I'd like to share my feelings. I want to hear your feelings about it. And you're just thinking like, man, like that other person is like, why are they not cooperating?
They're
like,
such a narcissist.
Yeah, right. On the other side, you're hearing the same thing. Like, yeah, I just was like telling her like blah blah blah. I'm like, why is she so bipolar or whatever? Right?
Yeah.
That thing. But
she
then,
always gets so emotional.
Right? And so like both of them are presenting this cake that they baked. You know, it's like, yeah, it was this beautiful like guitar. You know, I had all these perfect strings that I baked, and then you see the picture of what they baked. It's nailed
a
it.
shovel.
It's a shovel. You're like, that's not a guitar. That's a
With
shovel.
some lines on it.
Right, a melted shovel. You did not nail that at all. So we want to talk about that because it's a real thing, and like this happens, you know, where you think that you're presenting yourself or you're communicating yourself to the other person in a particular way. That probably is not at all how you're communicating, because the other person is having an experience of you that is very different. It is not lining up with what you're saying about yourself, which, okay, to some degree, that's always going to be the case, right? We're not going to like land that perfectly, but it should be in the ballpark, right? It should be like you're in the same house, right? Not we're in the same city where it's like you're across town and I'm on the other side of town. Where are we? We don't even know. Like, we're so far apart, right? But we're in the same city. That's not close enough. You should be able to like yell from upstairs, like, hey, you know, I'm bringing some laundry down, and the other person's like, okay, yeah, I hear you. I think I know what you said, right? So anyway, we want to talk about that today.
Yeah, I think some of what happens as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking, you know, I bet you one of the reasons why that happens is we've talked a lot about intent and impact. And I think a lot of times in individual therapy, especially the folks that are, you know, I'll just say good at therapy, meaning they are maybe consumers of it's better, that, you know, you've been in therapy a while. You kind of know what you should be saying, you know what should be happening, you know how things should be working.
And you even know the lingo of how to talk about that stuff, right? Even just say like, oh, I was, you know, just expressing emotions, and I was reflecting some things back and validating how they were feeling. Mm-hmm. And so that's all the therapy lingo, right, or the self-help lingo, but that's not what's actually happening.
No, it's definitely not. So, well, in the intent and impact idea, you are explaining to us individually what your intent is, as if it happened
that way,
right? Like, right. You know, and it's like, well, can you talk about how, you know, like I've kind of changed how I ask things based on, you know, running into this kind of thing over the years where, and honestly, it's probably based more in the fact that I would see sometimes with couples, I'll see one individual for a little bit, 2 or 3 sessions, and then bring the other one in 2 or 3 sessions. And then, I mean, every time the second person comes in, and I will have some ideas that will just burst into flames. Like, okay, this is not even happening. Like,
you're holding your script and they start talking and you just throw it. You're like, right, never mind. That doesn't apply.
The worst case was this one where I thought, man, I've asked all these. I think that this is going to suck. This lady's bipolar. That's what she probably, or actually, no, I thought she's borderline. I'm like, because this emotions are so all over the place. Well, when she came in, I was like, oh, crap. So I felt so ashamed of myself that I bought into this. I didn't tell the guy that. I didn't tell her that. It was just in my mind of like something I was trying to think through. And I felt bad, like, how did you even get there, Nate? Like, what did you even do? And it was because the guy's experience of her emotions were all over the place. Like, he did not understand her emotions, and so his communication about her emotions were totally randomized and made and nonsensical,
completely inaccurate.
Right. And so that's a lot of, I think that's actually a great example for this whole thing, is like, you can't assume when you're and this is therapist or client or whatever, you can't assume that the report that you're giving is just totally accurate. What you can assume is that it's accurate according to the way that you experienced it, because that's what you're giving. So therapeutically, you have to be somewhat interested in, like, I'll say like an observational role, like maybe saying to the person, like, if you were observing yourself or the other person in that conversation, what kind of conclusions do you think you would draw if you just didn't even know you and you didn't know this other person?
And similarly, what I will ask is somebody might tell a story, and I'm also holding the door open for the other person to have their experience, right? That's probably different from what you're describing. So then I'll ask the question, okay, and how do you think the other person would describe this situation from their vantage point? including how would they describe what you said and what you did.
Right. Oh, I'll tell you what they'd say. They say all I do is yell. All I do is blah blah blah.
Right.
Everything is everything is everything is everything.
And that's probably some indication that you're not coming across as you think you are, right? And so I'll like start to break that down. Like, okay, well, why do you think they would say that? Do you think there's any truth to that? Or did you do something or say something that might give them reason to think that? It's like, I want to try to like make this a little bit more concrete because, bro, I don't think you're seeing yourself as clearly as you think you're seeing yourself.
Yeah, I remember being in a session with a couple where this guy said something like, "Yeah, I don't think that matters in this case," and the other person goes, the lady goes like, "See, he just admitted it. He's cold and he just cut off." And I was like, I said, I was sitting there like, I actually was so shocked for a second. I'm like. Like in my mind, and he looked at me like, "Are we on Earth? Like what? What just happened?
Please touch me to make sure I'm still like, alive. Did something happen?"
I literally did not say that. I don't know what she's talking about, and it was absolutely shocking to her. I said because I in that situation was believable. I had a good rapport with both of them. And I don't lie, like, but especially, I mean, I have in my life, but that situation is not worth it, obviously. And she doesn't view me as a team member of the husband. In this case, she might actually feel more like I'm on her team in this particular setting. And so when I told her, I'm like, that he did not say that. Oh, yes, he didn't. No, he did not say that. The words that you're using did not happen. He used those exact, she went as far to say he used those exact words.
And okay, let me just pause there because that's a significant thing. It's shocking. And we're not just talking about this to make fun of it or whatever. This is like a very real thing that you might not realize is a sticking point in the relationship.
It can happen often.
Oh, it can happen very often, yes. Where, in this specific thing, where one of you is saying something and the other one then is interpreting that and then using those interpreted words as you said those words, the interpreted words. And it's like, no, I did not. But the person that's hearing it doesn't even realize that they've got an interpretation process happening that's then ascribing new words to what you said as if you said those ones in their mind, right? And they're so convinced of it because that's what they heard. They don't know the difference between the reality of the words you actually said and in their mind how they interpreted it. Those two things are one and the same without any awareness that that's happened. But the difference between that, the reality and what they actually are hearing is so dramatic that it's like, where in the world did you get that? But this is real. This happens all the time.
How this happens, in my opinion, is around the belief which happens after being wounded. So if you got hurt by your partner and then whatever belief you developed about why you got hurt and how you got hurt, you're going to be tuned in to that pain and then relabeling it when the person says things that kind of feel similar. In this particular case, the way he said what he said was matter of fact. So she interpreted that as cold and then labeled it as he cut off. But it went farther, and I'm partially not saying it right, to be honest, as far as what I mean by that is I don't remember the exact language that he used. But whatever that language was not what she said, and it was not remotely the same. And so it was interesting to be in that scenario and see something come back that was very obvious on my side. I actually couldn't believe it. For a little bit there, I was stunned. And then it wasn't, and I thought, well, maybe she's going to go back and then, well, say, you said this, which basically means you're saying this. And that never happened.
No, he actually said these words. And you're like, I was there. No, those words did not come out of anybody's mouth.
Yeah, and so being in situations like you'll have clients, if you're a therapist, you'll have clients that will come in and say, will report what the other person said. And you need to remain curious about that and open to maybe not. Maybe they didn't say that at all.
And to piggyback on that, I would say if somebody is in a relationship and they're talking about these things, I like to listen for how are they, it's like, what are they not communicating? Or if they're telling this story, are they only communicating about their experience? Or are they also then saying something about the other person's experience? And when they're communicating about the other person's experience, how likely, how accurate, how plausible is it? And I'll say this, there's a little, often an indication that somebody might be more of an accurate reporter when they can describe their partner's perspective or experience or feelings in a way that does not shine a very good light on themselves. So, for example, right, if I'm one partner and, you know, you're my therapist and I'm telling you like, oh yeah, you know, we're having this conversation and she said this and then here's what I said, and then she, you know, reacted to me probably because, you know, I had this tone to my voice and I know that bothers her, and so then she, you know, questioned me and she said, you know, she feels, you know, frightened when I use that certain tone because she's got a history or whatever. And so I had to make sure that I, you know, explained where I was coming from or whatever. In this ridiculous example, I'm describing the other person with some intricacy, with some specificity, and also with some objectivity, because it doesn't look good for me. Like, I'm using a bad tone and I'm clearly aware of and communicating that I'm having an effect on my partner, which is why now she's like yelling at me or whatever, right? So that's like, if somebody is communicating that in the therapy room, you know that they're probably more of an accurate reporter, versus if you hear the version of the story that's like, yeah, I was like making breakfast and she came downstairs and she just started yelling at me, you know, like, I'm like, whoa, I'm just trying to make you some like toast and coffee here. I'm just trying to take care of you, you know, and like, I just don't understand. She just like comes at me with these things, like, and I try to ask about it, you know, like, what's going on for you, or like, why are you so upset? And then she just gets even more upset, just yells even more, and I have to like leave the situation because I'm just being attacked first thing in the morning, right? Well, in reality, you know, if you hear the first version of the story, it's like, well, actually, I did something that upset her, and I'm skipping over all of that, or I'm not accurately reporting that, let alone how I'm affecting the other person, right? Mm-hmm. And I might be saying like, oh, I asked her about what's going on for her. I might have said like, what the crap is wrong with you? Or like, why are you yelling at me? That's how you asked what's going on.
Yeah, don't be a turd. Yeah, accept the toast. What are you talking?
Right, exactly. Like, that's what actually happened. Nailed it, bro. No, you did not.
Yeah. So bringing this up, the other thing is, and this is a caveat. Some people will come into therapy individually, and they will have been convinced that they have a problem. Their partner will have told them this, and it's on repeat. And then it becomes easier to go into therapy to deal with this, to just stop hearing about it all the time. Like, apparently, like, okay, maybe I am just doing this wrong. Let's just go do it. And so, and some partners will totally come in owning that, yep, I do this to them all the time. I just need to change it. And sitting there therapeutically going like, I don't know. Do you really do that? Like, I mean,
that seems so out of character.
Because it doesn't actually seem to mesh, like, with what's going on. Like, so we end up talking about their experiences. These folks oftentimes are the chameleons in the relationship, and they kind of come from a one down position,
or maybe like a doormat or something.
Yeah,
they sort of get walked over a little bit more,
and so they go in as like, okay, like I'll go fix myself, and then what inevitably happens is if any kind of change that's positive happens, and I mean that, like, that can mean a few different things, I realize. What I will start hearing is the person will come in and say, yeah, they say that you're not a very good therapist. Like, they think I should go to see somebody else. And then I'm thinking, that's because your narcissist partner, like,
right, your borderline partner just can't.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring it up as you were saying that. I'm like, yeah, the other side of that coin is the folks that come in from there. But in this, having this perspective where you're trying to, I'm hoping that with this episode, what you will do with it is you will be more open to the fact that you actually could be coming off completely different than you realize, because what honestly happens is, and it happens most of the time in partnerships, let me say it this way, if you are having a repeated over and over problem and you constantly are getting accused of doing something, and in your mind, your intent, it is just not even in your character to even think the way your partner is saying that you are acting, agree with them. Like, just, you're going to get way more out of it. You're going to get a lot closer to a solution if you just go, okay, well, they are experiencing this way. Because the other question I would ask you is, did you intend to date a crazy person? Are you dating somebody that is not even in connection with reality? What kind of person are you to find somebody that is totally disconnected from all reality? Do they do okay at work? Or they have a decent job? Do their other fellow employees think like, wow, bro, you are delusional, and you're hearing it all the time? Because if the answer is no, then it doesn't mean that you're doing exactly what your partner's saying. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean there's value in the impact that you're having that you're probably ignoring, which is why you keep getting told what you're getting told.
Yeah, and kind of similarly to that also, if you're listening and you're going to therapy, or even if you're just like talking to your friends, maybe it's not even therapy, you're just going and talking with your friends about your relationship, we want to encourage you to consider maybe even asking some people like, do you think I represent myself pretty well? When I'm talking to you about my relationship with so-and-so, or even, do I talk about my partner, very openly, or do you think I have a lot of things to say about them that seem accurate, or do I shine a negative light on myself, or am I only like painting myself in a positive light and painting them in a negative light? So get some awareness around that for yourself, and make sure that if you're going to communicate about yourself, about your partner, about your relationship, that it's even or balanced, right? If you're going to talk, negatively about like what's happening, make sure that you're also focusing on the negative things that you're doing. Or if it's positive, make sure you're identifying the positive things that your partner's doing. Or even just quantity-wise, if you're talking only about yourself and your experience, okay, that's fine, do that. But also make sure that you're incorporating the accurate story or version of what your partner is experiencing or communicating to you as well, with as much objectivity as possible. Because the point here isn't to be right, it's just to tell the story as it actually happened.
And if you can't do that because you're so irritable about it, then own that. Just admit that you can't. Like, just say, you know what? I can't even be objective about it. I'm so freaking irritated by this. I wouldn't even trust what I told you. And that's fair. It's somewhere to work because what you're doing is you're actually just owning where you're at, which is, we've talked about that.
And you're giving us the context for which to see everything that's happening as like, okay, you might be talking about something, but clearly you were upset about it. And so this probably isn't going to be the most accurate. And now we know.
And that's workable. Have a great day.
Dude, I like that. That was a fun episode.
That was good. We just get better with age.
We're like a fine wine. We're like a good cheese. I'll be the wine, you be the cheese.
Or a cheap flake. No, we're not.
What?
I know. I was just going for oxymorons.
Oh.
The end.
Awkward.